It began on an ordinary summer evening, the kind where the sun lingers on the horizon, casting long shadows across the quiet suburban neighborhood. My name is Alex, and I had always considered myself a rational person. I scoffed at ghost stories and dismissed the idea of the supernatural. But that evening would shatter my skepticism and plunge me into a nightmarish world I could never have imagined. I had recently moved into a quaint two-story house on Elm Street. It was an older home with creaky floorboards and a charming rustic feel. As I settled into my new abode, I couldn't help but feel a sense of tranquility. Little did I know that this peace was only a facade, a thin veil that concealed the horrors that lurked within. The first sign that something was amiss came in the form of unsettling whispers. I would be lying in bed, the covers pulled snugly around me, when I would hear faint murmurs in the darkness. At first, I chalked it up to my overactive imagination, the product of adjusting to a new environment. But as the days passed, the whispers grew louder, more distinct. I tried to dismiss them as mere auditory hallucinations, the result of stress or exhaustion. Yet the whispers persisted, taunting me with their incomprehensible words. They seemed to emanate from the very walls of the house, as if the house itself were alive, whispering secrets it had long kept hidden. My sleep began to suffer as a result. Night after night, I would toss and turn in bed, my dreams plagued by shadowy figures and incoherent voices. My once tranquil home had become a breeding ground for my own paranoia. One particularly sweltering evening, as I lay bathed in sweat, the whispers reached a crescendo. I couldn't ignore them any longer. They had become an unbearable torment. In a fit of frustration and fear, I jumped out of bed and followed the sound. The whispers seemed to lead me to the basement, a place I had avoided since moving in. The door to the basement was old and heavy, its hinges groaning in protest as I pushed it open. The stairs descended into inky blackness, and an icy draft wafted up from below, sending a shiver down my spine. As I descended, the whispers grew louder, forming into a twisted cacophony of voices. They spoke in languages I couldn't comprehend, their tones shifting from mournful to malicious. It was as if the very walls were alive with the torment of the damned. At the bottom of the stairs, I fumbled for the light switch and flicked it on. The basement came into view, and what I saw there would haunt me for the rest of my days. The room was filled with a grotesque menagerie of strange symbols, etched into the walls in what appeared to be blood. In the center of the room lay a weathered, leather-bound book, pages filled with arcane incantations and drawings of nightmarish creatures. It was a tome of the occult, and its presence sent a wave of dread coursing through me. But the most horrifying sight was yet to come. At the far end of the basement, in the deepest shadows, there stood a tall, dark figure. It was humanoid in shape, but with elongated limbs and a featureless face. It seemed to exude an aura of malevolence, and its presence sent a chill through my very soul. The figure began to move, its movements slow and deliberate. It was then that I realized it was not alone. Others, similarly twisted and nightmarish, emerged from the shadows. They moved in a macabre dance, their whispers growing louder and more frenzied. I couldn't move, couldn't tear my eyes away from the horrors before me. It was as if I were in a waking nightmare, trapped in a world of darkness and despair. Just as I thought I couldn't bear it any longer, the figure at the center of the room turned its featureless face in my direction. It raised an elongated arm and pointed a long, bony finger at me. The whispers reached a deafening crescendo, and then darkness. I awoke on the basement floor, bathed in cold sweat, the memory of the horrors I had witnessed still fresh in my mind. Was it all a dream? A hallucination brought on by stress and fear? I desperately hoped so, but deep down, I knew the truth. The basement held secrets, secrets that I was not meant to uncover. Little did I know that the horrors I had witnessed were only the beginning, and that the malevolent forces lurking in the shadows were far from finished with me. My once skeptical mind had been shattered, and I was plunged into a nightmarish descent into the unknown, where the line between reality and the supernatural blurred beyond recognition. In the days that followed my harrowing encounter in the basement, I became consumed by a growing obsession. The whispers still haunted my nights, and the memory of the shadowy figures and the occult tome weighed heavily on my mind. I couldn't simply ignore what I had seen. I needed answers. So I embarked on a quest to uncover the truth, no matter how unsettling it might be. My first step was to research the history of the house. I visited the local library and delved into old records and newspaper archives. It was there that I discovered the disturbing truth about my home. Decades ago, the house had been owned by a reclusive occultist named Sebastian Blackwood. He was rumored to have conducted sinister rituals and experiments in the basement, delving into dark and forbidden knowledge. The townspeople spoke of strange happenings and disappearances in the neighborhood during Blackwood's time. It was clear that my house was tainted by a dark history, a history that had left behind a malevolent presence. But what had become of Sebastian Blackwood and the occult secrets he had unearthed? My research led me to a local historian who claimed to possess a diary once owned by Sebastian Blackwood himself. The historian agreed to meet me in person and hand over the diary on the condition that I never reveal his identity. As I flipped through the worn pages of the diary, I discovered the twisted mind of Sebastian Blackwood. He had been obsessed with unlocking the secrets of the spirit world, delving into rituals that defied the laws of nature. The diary contained drawings and descriptions of the same nightmarish creatures I had witnessed in the basement. One passage, in particular, sent a chill down my spine. It described a ritual meant to summon beings from the shadow realm and bind them to the house. The ritual required the blood of the innocent and a willing sacrifice, a pact that would grant immense power, but at a terrible price. I realized with growing horror that the basement held the remnants of Blackwood's dark experiments, and the shadowy figures were the beings he had summoned from the shadow realm. Chapter 13. Confronting the Shadows. Armed with this newfound knowledge, I knew I had to confront the malevolent forces that plagued my home. The whispers had become more aggressive, and I could feel their presence encroaching on every corner of the house. I gathered materials and prepared myself for a ritual of my own, one that would banish the shadowy entities and cleanse the house of their influence. I knew it was a dangerous undertaking, but I had no other choice. The night I performed the ritual, the atmosphere in the house grew thick with tension. Candles flickered in the basement, and the air seemed charged with electricity. As I chanted the incantations from Blackwood's diary, I could hear the whispers growing louder and more desperate. The shadows began to stir, their twisted forms writhing in agony. It was as if they were fighting to maintain their grip on the house. But I pressed on, my determination unwavering. As the final words of the incantation left my lips, a blinding light filled the basement, and a deafening roar filled the air. The shadows recoiled, their forms dissipating into nothingness. I had done it. The malevolent entities were banished, and the house fell silent. Chapter 14. The Aftermath. In the wake of the ritual, the house felt lighter, as if a great weight had been lifted. The whispers had ceased, and the nightmares that had plagued me for so long began to fade. But I knew that I could never truly erase the horrors I had witnessed. The basement remained a place of dread, and the memory of the shadowy figures would forever haunt me. I couldn't forget the sacrifices made by those who had been drawn into Blackwood's dark experiments, nor could I erase the knowledge of the forbidden rituals I had uncovered. As I write these words, I wonder if I have truly banished the malevolent forces or merely pushed them deeper into the shadows. I can only hope that I have found a way to protect myself and future occupants of the house from the horrors that lie hidden in the darkness. My name is Alex, and this is my tale, a tale of disbelief shattered, of a descent into darkness, and of a relentless struggle to confront the unseen foe that lurked in the shadows of my own home.